But when you're actually there, it's really, really easy going. Just follow the signs. That's all. Like it's not even like really congested.
Hmm.
You kind of like walk a little bit while like a little while and then there's another sign. You keep walking and then there's another sign. It's
Cool.
very easy to follow, so don't worry about that. But yeah, you're getting into the high peaks area, kind of like walking along the cold river at this point. And one of the things that I started to look for, kind of like a rock enthusiast, and something that the high peaks are very known for is labradorite, and it's like a blue, like shining, like flashing, like mineral or gemstone, I guess you could say. A lot of people make jewelry out of it. So I just kind of like looked for that. Like I always like to like pick them up and I just like throw them back in the water and stuff because I'm not really trying to carrying any extra weight. But I did happen to see a lot of labradorite flashing in the water, which was very cool.
Awesome.
I walked by, I think it was, or yeah, Seward Lean-To. I stopped there. I kind of just like dried my shoes off. They did kind of get wet a little bit, but it really wasn't anything like significant. Just kind of took them out just to give my feet some air, and I had some lunch there. And then I continued over to the Aluska. Very hard to pronounce, so don't judge me on that. There were some people that were camping there, and I think they're just doing a section height. And I didn't really have a whole lot of conversation. I was just really trying to get to Duck Hole, but these seemed really nice. Um, oh, the Rondo Hermitage, very cool. Not really a whole lot there. There's a sign there, and there's a lot of like old remnants of his existence. Some like really rusted up things like this like chain, which was kind of like sketchy looking. So I was like, okay. But that was pretty cool. And like just walking along the cold river area was really neat just to see like the water, like eroded rock and like the pockets, like there's fish that you could see there. It was a really, really pretty area. I started walking farther past the Rondo Hermitage, and I eventually got to Mountain Pond. And Mountain Pond was pretty cool. I like could see some like mountains, like this, like Seymour, I believe it was, yeah. And I got to some more Cold River lean-tos, and eventually I started seeing sign for like the Ward Brook Trail, which is like slightly behind the Cold River
Hmm.
lean-tos. And it was really cool to just like see like familiar names like
Sure.
the Blueberry lean-to and like the Sewards, and just like being in that area, I was like, wow, I'm really close to home. Like this is cool. I can't believe I made it this far.
Absolutely. Now, when you got to the High Peaks Wilderness, obviously the whole trail goes through and along mountains, but when you got to the High Peaks, were the views, were you able to see so for this part, were you able to see the Seward Range at all, or were you still kind of in the woods for the most part? What were the
The
views like?
Seward, the Seward range, I couldn't really see. What I could see, or what I believed I could see, was panther, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce. I'm just gonna say couch. Um,
Kooksakakraga. Got it.
yeah, you guys, anybody that can pronounce that, kudos to you.
Sure.
Um, you could see that when you're actually walking along the Cold River, which was pretty cool.
Okay,
And there
cool.
were some clouds that were just kind of hanging below that, so that was neat. But the I did see a mountain, and I'm gonna say that it might have been Seymour. But when you're walking behind Mountain Pond, you can, if you look up to the left, there's a mountain there. So that might have been Seymour. I'm assuming it's the only one on the map that I can see here. So I'm like walking along, and I'm pretty tired at this point. I'm on my video. I was just saying like I want to go home. Like I'm so beat. And like I'm kind of like walking like rigid because my body is just like ready to lock up at this point. Like it's definitely like something that I my body is not used to doing consistently back to back, like close to 20-mile days.
Sure.
So I'm getting into the duck hole area, and I see some people and some kids at this other lean-to, and they're not really very well marked. There's just one, and I was concerned as to like where's duck hole number one because I would like to stay there. And I asked them, I was like, "Hey, do you guys know where duck hole number one was?" And they kind of looked at me like puzzled, and I was like, "Okay." So I'm just gonna walk away then, and I did, and I just continued to walk, and I actually ended up finding duck hole number one, which is beautiful lean-to. Um, I think it might have been made in like the last year or two. It was very fresh. You could still smell the wood on it. It was bright, like orange, yellow in color. And I was so relieved. And I was like, this is great. Like, I can't believe I was even thinking about walking to Lake Placid. I'm shot. So I just got my stuff off my back and got situated. And the first thing I did was walk down to the stream there, um, which is just like a subset, like area off of Duck Hole. And I washed in there, and like the rocks were like so pretty, and like the water was clear. And I just was like looking back at what I think might have been Henderson Mountain in the south view, and that was really pretty. So that was like probably the highlight of my trip, was just getting to Duck Hole and just seeing
Okay,
the
cool.
view and the sunset, and that was a beautiful, beautiful time
So you
for
got there
me.
before, I mean, most of the places you got, all of the places you got before the sun went down.
Yeah.
Around what time do you think you got to Duck Hole?
Oh, I'm not sure. Not really sure at all. It was definitely a little bit longer of a day
Okay,
for me, but
sure.
I do remember the golden hour happening then. So I washed off and I made dinner. I had my fire going. I was I was very happy that I got to camp every night before any kind of downpouring rain occurred, because I was able to dry my shoes every night, which really made a difference.
Hmm.
If I had walked like day after day in wet shoes, I don't know if I would have been able to finish. I know that blisters are a huge thing with this trail, especially like wet feet. So
Sure. How many pairs of socks did you have with you?
I had four pairs of socks, and one of which was strictly for sleeping in. I had a pair of comfy, like, I don't know, some like wool socks in case it was like cold out. And it was just like a kind of like a comfy thing for me.
Hmm. Now, earlier in the trip, the bugs were brutal. How were they towards this part of the trip?
They weren't that bad here. They definitely were. They definitely made an appearance. But it wasn't enough for me to like hide in my tent or anything like that. It did rain that night. And like a notable thing that I remembered about getting into this section was that like there was definitely very scarce places to have a bear hang for me personally.
Hmm.
And those are spruce trees. There isn't really any branches that you can throw over them. So that was kind of a tough situation, and I think that's definitely a reason why it's kind of important to have a bear canister with you. But to my understanding and to what I've been told about the trail, that it wasn't even required. So that's why I went with the bear bag, because it's lighter and just easier to carry.
Absolutely. So much easier. All right, so day 7 in the books. You are at Duck Hole, which is the highlight of your trip, as you said. So you have one more day to Lake Placid, and the next day is going to take you past Moose Pond, past the Chubb River, and ultimately into Lake Placid. So you went to
Yep.
sleep that night at Duck Hole. How'd that
Yep.
go? And then how was take us through day 8, the final day?
Night went well. I was kind of like awakened by some like a chattering or chippering kind of a sound, and I think that it might have been a pine marten, but I'm not sure. Um, I was looking around for it. I didn't end up seeing anything, but it just sounded different from anything that I had heard. But I got up, I got started, and I made my way through. And I think this section was probably one of the most like scenic for me, even though it didn't like have like mountainous views and like lakes and stuff like that. It was more like the flora that was going on. It was very mossy. There was beautiful like mushrooms of like every color, like orange, yellow, like a pinkish color. I saw one that was almost kind of like a darker red, like almost purple looking. And I was like, wow, these are so cool. Like, obviously, don't touch them, but I got pictures.
Hmm.
So that was neat. Um, I made my way down and around Moose Pond, that lean to, which is very wooded. It was kind of like tough to like find. I mean, I wasn't like really looking for it for any specific reason other than just to see it. But it was kind of like really dense with like trees in that section. And I continued to move on. So I always look at the map before I get started just to kind of like see what I'm looking for along my route. And I saw the Wanaka Falls and wanted to check that out. So as I got closer to that, I prepared to kind of like go explore that area a little bit. And I did hike the little section of trail that goes up the falls. And much to my surprise, I really didn't see a whole lot of like good viewpoints, like at least for like a picture or anything like that. It was really cool. I did check it out. There's some like pockets where the water just kind of like eroded the rock, and you can just like sit in it like a bath. I didn't do that because I was trying to just keep going, but
Hmm.
I thought it was really cool, and it definitely probably wouldn't be a bad idea to just like hike in there someday and just spend some time at Wanaka Falls and use a campsite there as well.
So now what was going through your mind at this point? You're getting to the finish line. I assume you must have had that, it's the last day of school, pep in your step.
Oh yeah. I For this section, I kind of just like let anything go. Like I was just going for it, and I didn't really care so much about staying dry. I didn't care so much about my feet slish lashing. Like I just went, and because I knew that like everyday comforts were only a few hours ahead of me. So I kind of just went, and I probably had a really fast pace at this point in time because I knew I was going home. I continued just to keep going. I was a little emotional at one point. Just like knowing that like I can't believe I gotten this far. Like this is so cool. I kind of like snapped out of it and just kind of like kept going. Not really a whole lot of like notable things to mention here. Before I did start the trail, I started from the Averville trailhead and I kind of walked in like maybe 5 miles or so. And I believe I turned around right before that footbridge after one of the falls, and I turned around and went back just to kind of like get an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So something cool was like I started to like see what I remembered from like just kind of do a little trial run on the MPT with like a full pack, and I was like, wow, I'm here. Like I'm like a couple miles from being down, like or being done with the trail.
That's great. The light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I started to see some people. I saw like two gentlemen that were going south. I don't know if they're actually like through hiking or if they're just going for a day. And I eventually started to see the Chubb River there, and I was like, wow, this is really it. And I got to the Averyville, the parking lot there, and I was like, wow, that's great. I got my picture taken. I got met by my boyfriend with a full sub. I think there were like some Swiss cake rolls, some chips, I think macaroni salad, like just like a random assortment of things, and like two Gatorades that just slammed immediately.
Did you
And that
request
was
those specific items or he just brought them?
no, I was just like, bring food.
Sure.
And I just like kind of believed that he would bring me something that was good. And it worked out. It was good.
Great. So as you walked out, what were you feeling once you walked to that trailhead and saw him in the parking lot and saw you were done? What went through your mind at that point? You accomplished your goal.
I was like kind of just like trembling as like I just like walked out of the like when I just got to the trail register and I flipped the book open and I just saw the people that like a few people, I want to say like five that finished that day or like the day before me. And they like were writing like MPT heart, I did it, and it was just like so cool. Like, and some of these people that I followed for days ahead of me, and it was just like so cool to like see their sign-ins at the trail registers along the way and to see that they made it like I did and like probably went through a lot of the same struggles that I did. And it was really, really like rewarding to get to that point and to say that I did it. And I think I signed with like MPT and a heart as well. And it was just really cool.
That's awesome. Very satisfying. So knowing what you know now, and let me just say this has been great going through your hike completely from the map top to bottom. Been awesome. What would you do different knowing what you know now? What are things that you would recommend to other people to do differently than you did, if anything?
I would absolutely look more into doing a resupply. So the big thing with me was like I was just worried about not making it on time because I was unsure of my pace. But if you set yourself up to land in the middle of the week, sometime in the middle of the week, just call to make sure they're hours. But I would totally set up a resupply. It alleviates so much weight on your back, and it would definitely make for an easier experience. Another thing that I would do is I would go later in the year. I would bypass the bugs as much as possible. Like start in September, you're going to get probably the changing leaves. You're going to have cooler nights. You're going to have less humidity, hopefully, and probably a lot less bugs. Definitely a lot less black flies or like horse flies.
Definitely a lot less
Yeah.
bugs for sure.
That's definitely one thing that I would do. But I was on a tight schedule. I was getting ready to go back to nursing school, so I kind of needed to get it done at that point in time.
Great. So now what is the biggest takeaway on this trip that you learned about yourself and about the Adirondacks?
So I would say one of the biggest takeaways from this trip is to kind of not really rely so much on other people's ideas of the trail. So, for example, I was told to beware the blowdown, beware the blowdown, beware the blowdown. And, when I got to the blow down, I was like, I don't see what the fuss